أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers, good to see you again. Alhamdulillah. Welcome to this short, inshallah, reminder. As usual, since 2018 began, we're just going through a few, ayat in each circle, just to reflect on and draw some lessons, hopefully collectively from, inshallah. The ayat that I was thinking about today, I was reminded of them due to a few recent events. One of these events was, I'm sure you'll all remember recently what's been happening in Al-Ghouta al-Sharqiyya, Eastern Ghouta in Syria, particularly the messages that have been coming out from some brothers that are on the ground there, talking about the dire situation. And alhamdulillah, there was some movement, there was some minor, kind of relatively minor but still significant developments, because so many people, Muslims, non-Muslims as well maybe, a lot of people made a noise, contributed to raising awareness about this thing, and there was some, although it's not obviously alleviated, there's still much time, still much effort to go. There was some, awareness raised, and a lot of, mashallah, aid was collected, and they started to try to smuggle it into this besieged area. And there was some, political kind of gestures and so forth, UN ceasefire and that kind of stuff. But the thing that I was particularly kind of struck by, and I didn't mention this in the khutbah I last did on this, I didn't get a chance to mention this, but one brother in particular who was talking about, from there, who's in Syria delivering aid and trying to, help people that are suffering. There was one thing in particular he said which was quite powerful, and that was, he was saying that there is a feeling that, or there shouldn't be a feeling rather, that the ummah has just forgotten us. Right? And he was saying that as well as giving aid and raising awareness and talking about it in mosques and petitioning MPs to do something about this, he said as well as that, we should also try and send messages of support to those people and give them moral support and give them a consolation that, we can't do much practically, but we're supporting you, we're thinking about you, we're making dua for you, that your ummah has not forgotten you. And I remembered something that one of our teachers said once, and that is, we should never underestimate the power of giving somebody moral support, because even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam moral support. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the beginning of Surah Al-Qalam or Surah Noon, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun ma anta bi ni'mati rabbika bi majnun. Allah said, Noon, then He swears an oath by the pen and that which they are writing. You are not, referring to the Prophet ﷺ, you are not by the grace of your Lord mad. Not only that, وَإِنَّ لَكَ لَأَجْرًا غَيْرَ مَمْنُونَ. And for you, waiting for you is an unending reward. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And you are on the highest standard of moral character. The Prophet ﷺ in this time of his life, right? He's lived 40 years. He's so loved by the Quraysh for his outstanding character. He's named As-Sadiq al-Amin, right? He doesn't partake in any of the evil actions, any of the fasad and any of the corruption, any of the kufr and the shirk. However, despite that, he's still loved by them for his character. They give him things to look after. They rely on him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But all of a sudden, one day, he receives revelation, right? And all of a sudden, almost as if overnight, the people who admired him and would call him a Sadiq and Amin, the trustworthy, truthful one, all of a sudden now they call him the opposite. Oh, he's lying, he's a magician, he's a madman. And no doubt, he's a human being, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's going to feel sad that his people that he's grown up with, even his family members, his uncles, they're calling him these names now. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consoling the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ma anta bi ni'mati rabbika bi majnun. You are not, by the grace of your Lord, a madman. And this is something I remembered when this brother, he said, reach out to these people. We all have social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, access to that. In every city, alhamdulillah, I've noticed that there's some kind of aid convoy and collecting stuff for these families, these people, innocent civilians that are suffering. Why not just send messages? Get our children to write letters, send it with these aid convoys, so that they feel, thousands of miles away, I've never met these people, but they're supporting us, they care about us. The Ummah hasn't forgotten us. And this is something that these ayat we should take a lesson from, even if it's somebody next door to you. Not just somebody suffering far away, but even close to us. How aware are we of the troubles that our own friends, family members, neighbors, colleagues might be going through? A few weeks ago was Self-Harm Awareness Day. Right, Self-Harm Awareness Day. And I was with some brothers and I heard a khutbah by another brother, Sheikh Uthman Latif. Right, he did a khutbah on this a few weeks ago. I didn't even know there was a Self-Harm Awareness Day. Right? MashaAllah, he's on the ball, he knows what's happening and he's giving people advice. And the UK is amongst the top ranked countries when it comes to incidents of self-harm. Right? What is self-harm? It's something that people who are extremely depressed do. They maybe feel, there's many different reasons for people to do that, but the point here is, how many of us are aware of the signs of somebody maybe becoming very depressed, somebody becoming sad? This is a very important aspect of our community, of our culture as Muslims. Not just with other Muslims. Anyone you're in contact with, we have to be aware of this. And giving consolation to someone is very, very powerful. We might not think so. We might kind of, in this kind of macho role that we play, that we might think, I don't need you to give me a hug or anything. Right? But seriously, especially when somebody is going through some trouble, giving them consolation, giving them moral support is very powerful. We were speaking with one sheikh who happened to be, vilified in the media and in parliament even. Right, I won't mention his name, but he was saying that he was defamed. Okay, some people were saying something bad about him, and he said that people in my own masjid, in my own community, right, when this happened, when my name was in the headlines, they, in the street, people I've known for 20 years, they would just cross the road when they saw me. This is the kind of the subjugated mentality that some of us have. To just, distance yourself from this person. Oh, there's something dodgy about him now, I need to... Right? And he said, so many people, when I was attacked in the media or whatever, he said, so many people were kind of avoiding me, distancing me. And I really, really was positively affected by the few people who came out and they met me and they called me up and they said, how are you? We're supporting you, we're making dua for you, may Allah make things easy for you. It has a big impact. Right? A huge impact on somebody's morale, because they're human beings at the end of the day. Right? Even the Prophet ﷺ was given consolation. And his heart is the purest heart Allah has ever created for humans. Right? The purest heart, the strongest heart, is able to receive some consolation, some steadfastness and ithbat. Then what about everyone else? What about everyone else? So this is something in particular we need to be careful about, especially when you think about self-harm. We're talking about Self-Harm Awareness Day. They say it's especially prevalent, or more prevalent, when it comes to young girls. Right? Especially so in the kind of culture that we find around us. And even more so, in particular, in this new cyber world, cyber reality that we occupy. Particularly those social media sites that are very image heavy, image focused. Right? Instagram, Snapchat. They talk about a compare and despair, culture. And young girls are particularly susceptible to this type of anxiety and depression. When they see society around them is giving them images about what beauty is, right? What a good-looking person is, right? They're bombarded with images from, TV, advertising, billboards, and whatnot, all the way down to the images that they see, on their phones when they're scrolling around subconsciously, right? This false, artificial standard of beauty, right? And then they look at themselves and they think they're less, that they're ugly, that they're not good enough, or they're not thin enough, or they're too thin, or they're not tall enough, or they're not short enough, or whatever. So one thing, one brother was saying that you should, especially if you have a daughter, every day, say to her, repeat after me, I am, clever. I am beautiful. I am hardworking. I am, and mention good things about them. Right? Because when they leave the house, when they go out, they go to school and they play or whatever on their social media and so forth, they get the opposite messages. Right? So consoling them and giving them self-esteem and making them proud in their own image is very important, to be on the lookout for these things. And it's something that they say is on the rise, right? It's increasing year on year, and we have to be especially wary of this when it comes to our communities, because we have, on one hand, an Islamic kind of face that we wear, and then the kind of wider British or modern society face that we wear. So in modern society, Western society face that we wear, everyone just, atomized, everyone's in silos doing their own thing. There's no real sense of actual community. Just mind your own business, look at your kids and look after your kids, and let that person look after their kids, and if you see something happening, then mind your business. But the Islamic face that we wear is kind of the opposite, right? That we're all responsible for each other's tarbiyah, for each other's cultivation and nurturing. Right? You should be on the lookout if you see any issues with my kids, and even brothers to each other. Right? Al-mu'minu mir'atu akhihi. Prophet ﷺ said the believer is a mirror to his brother. There's many different reflections on this hadith. Among them is, a believer will give you, an accurate representation of your good qualities, right, and any negative aspects that you need to improve on. He won't ignore and belittle your good qualities and focus disproportionately on your negatives, which is what many of us do, right, to our friends or maybe our family members and so forth. No, if somebody is good at something, somebody has some good qualities, mention that and console them sometimes, without going into kind of blameworthy praise that might give them some ego issues. We all know, generally speaking, where the line is. Don't go around praising someone just for the sake of praising, but especially if you see someone, maybe they have self-esteem issues, or maybe they're having a tough time, or maybe they're receiving, they're subject to discrimination or prejudice or whatever for the colour of their skin, or for their being a Muslim, or the way they dress and so forth. Give them that consolation. Right? مَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِمَجْنُونَ. You are not, by the grace of your Lord, mad. وَإِنَّ لَكَ لَأَجْرًا غَيْرَ مَمْنُونَ. One of the ways to console someone, a Muslim, is to remind them of the reality of this life. Is to remind them of where your true value lies. See, if you're in any particular time, in any particular place, right, that time, that place, that culture, that will have its own, measurement of what success is, what being a good person is, maybe what being beautiful is, right? Where do you get your value? For example, in this society today, we can say, generally speaking, you get your value from material gain, right? Or how faithfully you're helping the cycle of kind of production and consumption. So if you have a job where, even if you're working, all you're doing is kind of enriching some shareholder somewhere, that person, if you have a job and you're doing that job and you're making that machine carry on and churn out kind of whatever its product is, you're seen as a successful person. But if you perhaps have a different, spend less time working and do something else, right? Maybe focus on your children's tarbiyah or something like this, then you're seen as a bit of a, maybe you're not using your potential or unsuccessful, right? But one way to combat the likelihood, or reduce the likelihood of somebody falling into depression or being having low self-worth, is to reset their benchmark, their meter, their gauge for what a successful person is. And a successful person truly is a person who is successful at the end, after this life, right, in the hereafter. Everything that we're competing for now, all the material gain and the money, the cars, the big house, it's gonna fade away. Even in our own lifetimes. Imagine the last phone you bought, the last car you bought. You'll think, when you open it, it was nice and new in the package, or when you drove it you were spending weeks and weeks researching the exact car model to buy, and then you finally got it, and then you had those few minutes where it's new, and then now it's just a means to get from A to B. Right, now that phone, that brand new phone that you're so excited about, it's just, you use it to do things. You don't think about, wow, this phone, I'm so happy with this phone. No, now you're thinking, what's the next one coming out? Right? This is the nature of this dunya. But that which truly, determines success is what comes after this. And the Prophet ﷺ is shown that he is given the greatest reward. Why? Because every single thing